rock bottom is not the end of your story. I know that now. But when that phone rang that day, I didn't know it yet. I remember exactly where I was standing the moment that phone call rang. I didn't know that call was going to end everything I'd built my life upon, yet also at the same time begin everything God had planned. But this was the moment that I blamed God. I remember just after signing my contract in Europe, I went back home for a season just to recover, just to finalize all my paperwork back in the country, because I was going to move to Europe for the next 3 to 4, maybe even 5 years. It was a quiet morning. I was home about 2 days and I got a phone call and I saw it said Switzerland. And obviously I've been in contact with them because they are sending me my visa. We have some paperwork to figure out. The phone call didn't come as a surprise to me. Just looking back on it, it was one of the most shocking moments of my entire life because I had lost everything in this moment that I've ever worked for. As the phone rang, I actually was still in bed early during a week morning, and I picked up the phone and answered, and the person saying, "Hey, I've sent you an email. Please take note, it's serious." And obviously I wasn't surprised, but what followed shook me. He told me that, "Listen, you have been tested positive for an illegal substance." And I remember sitting with my phone like this and pinching myself that morning because it felt like I was dreaming. Like in that moment, I thought this cannot be real. Because first of all, I know that I would have done nothing to jeopardize my career, but at the same time, this is a sportsman. It's your worst nightmare. And at the young age of like just 17, 18 years old, I'm being confronted with this. And I just jumped up and just remember how empty life seemed at that moment. I ran to my parents who was home at the time and I just started weeping. I thought to myself, how could this be? It's like a nightmare and I'm yet to just wake up from it. In that very moment, I just thought to myself, what are people going to say? Like, this is probably one of my worst fears. Ever since I've been a very young person, I've always been so insecure of what people think about me. And now I'm going to face one of my biggest fears on a global basis. This is not just a school event or being rejected from a friend. Like what I'm about to be confronted with is so much bigger than anything else at this young stage of my life. I knew from the races that I won just in the previous 6 months that most of the newspapers celebrated me as the first South Africans on many of these podiums. Those same people are going to write about me and accuse me of this scandalous story. And I want to take a moment for you to realize and to understand what losing your identity actually feels like. Because it's not just losing your career or a dream. It's losing the answer to the question, who I am. Because for so long, I've been not just actively engaged in the sport, I actually worshipped the sport. And one of the main things that I can tell any person is you become what you behold. You become like what you worship. I became the sport, so when it was taken away from me, it's not just like I lost a dream, it was like a piece of who I was taken away from me. And how dark the thoughts became in that very moment, that I was about to lose everything I've worked for, including this identity of mine. I actually said in that very moment, as I started growing anxious, as my thoughts were spiraling, I said, well, if this is what life wants to bring me, then I do not want life anymore. My immediate response to this moment in my life was, I want to end it because I am not willing to face my biggest fear. I'm not willing to face people's rejection and the way that people are going to treat me once they find out what happened in this moment. I knew that I had access to weapons in my grandfather's safe. I knew where the keys were to the safe. And I knew that if things get tough, I know there's a quick way out, if you know what I'm saying. At the same time, I was so angry at God because how could He allow this to happen? And I want to clarify this, that I did nothing intentional to ingest this substance. I, to date, am not 100% sure how I ingested it, but the facts are that I was tested positive for the following: heptaminol through the World Anti-Doping Agency. But I think one of the biggest people that I blamed at that moment was God, because this was supposed to be my life. This was supposed to be my future. This was supposed to be who I was at that stage of my life. And now I've lost it. Now it's not part of me anymore. And I'm just freaking out at that stage. And I think what I realize now is that anger at God is not the end of your relationship with Him. Sometimes it's the beginning of an honest one. And that's what I've learned through the drawbacks in my life. In pretty much within this rock bottom moment of mine, I so remember my mom, with the woman of God that she is and a prayer warrior. She just tried to force me to go to youth church. At that stage, I didn't want God. I just wanted my life back. I wanted my sport back and my contract. And I so remember slamming the door in her face like moments before. I was invited to go to the youth group, but I didn't just slam the door in her face. I swore at her the moment she tried to encourage me, like, listen, you need help. And I'm sure she was aware of what I'm going through and how tough it was for me at that stage. And she simply just wanted to assist me in my brokenness. And one thing that I later realized, because I judged myself so much for the way that I treated my parents and the people around me, I realized that you don't get bad people. God didn't create you to be a bad person. Like everything you're going through that seems bad or whatever, that's not because you are bad, it's because you are broken. And I think in my broken state, that's the only thing that I could have done, is react in this way. But God didn't create you to be a bad person. The bad things in your life are because of brokenness. Broken people do bad things, just like I did in the state that I was. I mean, I was planning on ending it all, committing this thing in my life that's going to unalive me. And my mom realized in that moment that she's not able to get through to me. And I desperately, her last attempt was saying, hey, the pastor that is preaching at the youth, it's Pastor Mzi, you love him, he's a great person. Like, that was her final attempt, and still it didn't get through to me. And what ended up happening was she got the youth pastor to send me a message, and I accidentally went into the WhatsApp message. And the people pleaser in me, like, I didn't want to ignore a pastor on WhatsApp, because somehow in my mind I thought, like, yo, that's bad. And 10 minutes before it started, I actually left. I ran outside to the gate as my brother and my sister were pulling out the car, and I said, wait, I'm joining you guys. But we have to sort of realize that the person I've been in Europe for so long, and the community where I was raised is a more conservative community. So the way I looked was different. My hairstyle was different. The way I dressed was different. So even just walking in there, I already sort of felt like an outcast, and I didn't want to be there. Like I said, I didn't want God. I just wanted my life back. And arriving at the youth church, it felt like it's not making anything better. I just remember they turned off the lights in worship, and I was like sitting right back where nobody can touch me or see me or interact with me because I have zero capacity for it. Just as I stood there in God's presence, I started just blaming Him. And I think for so long, this was the most honest conversation that I've had with God. And I've said some very inappropriate things to Him out of my state and out of my anger. And something started to shift radically. I started to experience things that I haven't experienced in years. I walked into that church to prove that God wasn't there. I sat right at the back with my arms folded. I was angry, and then something happened. I still can't explain. That's exactly what I'm going to tell you about next week. Please subscribe and turn on your post notifications, and I'll see you in the next video as I proceed my story. And if any of you can relate to this moment of brokenness and rejection, if you might be that person sitting right at the back of the room, maybe not just at church, but any room, the person that doesn't belong anywhere, please, I would love to hear that in the comments. I want to pray with you concerning that because I'm going to read all the comments. I'll see you guys next week. Goodbye.